longevity and social impact. How are you guys looking at financial year 2021?
Okay. This is not in my knitting, but I'll quote from what Uday said very early on during the crisis. He said that we, and by we he means the world, is in uncharted waters right now. If anyone is able to confidently predict how we are going to come out of this, when, and how the world is going to look after this, I think they're smoking something that you and I should also get a share. What I certainly feel is that there is some risk for every colleague of mine from marketing who's on this chat. There is some risk that we may have to retool and reskill ourselves very quickly. And we should use this time actually. You know, Americans are very used to having done multiple kinds of jobs. They've been carpenters and authors and teachers and lecturers and politicians and whatnot. As a stereotype, we Indians, particularly the educated ones, tend to be far more, shall I say, monotonous in our career choices. I, for example, have been in advertising / marketing for pretty much the bulk of my life. If I lost my job, I have no idea what I would do. I have no idea how to become a teller, for example. It's very hard. So I think reskilling ourselves and using this time to say, you know, I've always dreamt of trying to do that other thing. This is the chance for us. And that's something at least that I can predict that we should be preparing for, because we don't know what's going to happen to the job market when we go forward. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a doomsayer. I'm not suggesting we're all going to lose our jobs. That's not my point. But I think because we have all experienced this thing, and because employers have also experienced this thing, like TCS has said, for example, that they have already realized that they can work with only about 25% of their workers being physically in their facilities. 75% can work at home, and they'll improve productivity by 25% from that. So they'll go to 125. When they do that, it's not that the jobs are being lost, but certainly the way we work is changing for India particularly. A lot of IT people in the US already work like this, but we are not used to it yet. And if that kind of change is already around the corner, expect other kinds of changes to happen as well. And it's hard to predict what those changes will be. And I think we should all be thinking about it and talking about it more, and preparing in whatever way we can think best.
So this question has also come from Manoj. Even I wanted to understand from you, do you also think that customer behavior will also change? Our working styles will change. A lot of things will change. But do you think after this lockdown of, I don't know how long will this prolong, but you are expecting some change in customer behavior?
Definitely. And I think for my sector, a lot of it will be positive, because I think they will go much more aggressively digital. They'll be comfortable with digital a lot more. So we will probably tune down on our physical presences as a sector. Kotak already is one of the leanest physically present. We have physical outlets much smaller than many of our market cap peers. So that's something I think will happen. Jury is out on whether customers will suddenly become frugal, or will they start spending again at normal or above normal levels. And Mahesh Murthy, for example, wrote a piece in LinkedIn yesterday or today, I think, where he predicts that customers will start becoming more frugal, and they will stop being seduced by brands who are persuading customers that if they buy X perfume and Y handbag and Z jacket, they are going to be more attractive or whatever, and that they'll get more meaningful in their purchases. I think actually for those with the money, the opposite is going to happen. It's my hypothesis that events like this, which produce a lot of grief and anxiety, when the release happens, I think we as human beings will tend to solve for those vacuums that have been created by that grief by becoming hedonist, more hedonist. We will consume more aggressively. It's like a hungry
We
man.
want to celebrate it,
No, not to celebrate, but we
for a
want
few days at least.
we want to feel good about ourselves, finally.
Yeah.
And the easiest way to feel good about ourselves is to pamper ourselves. How do you pamper yourself? You wear a fancy watch, you keep looking at it, you feel good about yourself. And I'm not saying it's a good thing. I hope Mahesh is right and I'm wrong, honestly. But I suspect that luxury brands will actually thrive post-COVID for these reasons, which are close to core to the human condition.
Richa Goba has an interesting question. What banking products do you believe are going to be important for customers post COVID-19?
the ones that we wanted them to think of as important all this time, which is digital, so that we can have fewer physical interfaces, save all that money, provide more efficient and economical products to consumers. So mobile banking as an example, and everything that mobile banking encompasses, which is honestly 90 to 95% of everything you need from a bank today. A lot of people come to the bank physically in large measure out of habit or out of a misplaced fear that mobile पे ये काम नहीं होगा, कुछ गड़बड़ होगा, कहीं तो अटक जाएगा. I don't have a human being to be able to resort to and say, see, I asked you what happened to this, etc., etc. But I think a lot of those fears have been proven to be misplaced for quite some time now. In COVID, it is, I think, very well established. So I am confident that people will actually take to mobile banking much more easily in the future than they did before COVID.
Jagriti Shah wants to know, how does the bank aim at jumping back after the virus settles down? How will it gain back the mindshare of customers? What is immediate strategy to get going?
I'm not sure we've lost mindshare particularly because people are staying at home and they're consuming a lot of goods and services which are being delivered to their doorstep. Their interaction with payment tools is actually heightened now. For example, and pardon the stereotyping, and I don't mean to be gendered in this, but I'm just giving it as a generalized example. In households where the woman was at home, the homemaker, and the man was at work, all the shopping or interactions that happened at the doorstep were all handled by the homemaker previously. Today, because the man is at home, all too frequently, he's answering the door and he's paying. And because of that, he's experiencing much more closely and viscerally those multiple micropayment opportunities and interactions, right? And when he's doing that, if he wants to shrug off that responsibility, he willingly is educating the homemaker who previously may not have taken to mobile payments so readily. Now he's holding hands and saying, "Chalo, ye karte hain." And almost all the way down to the milkman is now willing and ready to accept a digital payment, right? Previously, not necessarily so. So in all these ways, I think, honestly, I think money, let me not say banking, but money's mindshare has not disappeared whatsoever. Also because, like we're discussing here, people are worried that incomes are going to shrink and so on and so forth. So I don't think banking brands mindshare is the problem. What are we slow on? We are possibly slow on, for example, home loans, because I don't know how those deals are getting done when everyone is at home. The builder is at home, the buyer is at home, the banker is at home. I don't know how those deals are getting done, which I confessed to earlier. But those sectors, once the lockdown is over, obviously will come back, and will come back in an organic fashion, I think, Jagriti. I don't know if there is a better answer I can provide.
So next couple of questions, if I can sum them up for you, they're basically asking you if media planning choices will change post this crisis.
So I looked at spending behavior of my customers just this morning, pre-COVID and post-COVID. And one of the standout items on which they're spending their money right now is DTH. We've seen DTH payments go up by a full 40% pre-COVID to post-COVID. So people seem to be watching more TV, more traditional television, if I were to use that as a metric, right? Because they're paying for more TV that they weren't paying for before. So it's not just OTT, it's also TV. So frequently, this is the sitting duck, right? That TV is going to go away and all OTT is going to take away all their lunch. I think we're far from that, because it's like all incremental media only becomes incremental. We expand our consumption habits to accommodate more media. We don't actually give up any media completely. Just like people don't give up branches completely. Even though everything can be done on the mobile, they still come to branches. They still never open a bank account with a bank whose branch they can't see near their house or their office in the same way. So I think media choices will also work in tandem with that. I'd like to talk about something else in this context. All of us have received from some friend or well-wisher a PDF copy of a bunch of newspapers every morning, which is the full newspaper. Now, all these newspapers were already online. We could always go to their website or their app and read these stories. Suddenly, PDFs have been floating all over the place. I suspect that it's the publishers who don't want us to lose the habit of the physical newspaper, who are giving us a facsimile of that, a version of that inside our phones. But that PDF on a phone screen is impossible to read, frankly. So I am a little confused about the purpose of that. My suspicion is that it's to help us not forget the habit that this is what a newspaper looks like. Again, to the point of whether we will continue to advertise in newspapers, Kotak frankly has not been a big advertiser historically. So I don't think because of COVID, we're going to change our behavior.
Dilkush Khandelwal from Vadhva Group. My question is, banking is the backbone of any economy, and post-COVID-19 major issue in front of India is economic crisis. This fear has already started haunting every family now. How would banking industry address this issue to overcome this fear from marketing point of view?
So my colleague Nilesh Shah from our mutual fund, actually, and you should look him up, and he's got a couple of videos and a write-up and so on. He is very confident that for India, it's a 3 to 6 month journey to a full recovery. And I'm going to bet on his prediction on this because he's turned out to be right about many things in the past as well. So from that lens, I would say people will be somewhat fearful. There will be some jobs lost. There will be some income shrunk for sure. But there's a very good chance India will actually bounce back much faster and much better. And again, to quote from much more learned friends that I have, there is a very good chance that much of what is happening in the world today may all play into India's hands to give India a leg up. So on the back of this humanitarian crisis, once everybody recovers, on the world stage, India may actually have a better hand to play, and in many ways. For example, the fact that oil is so cheap now may play into India's economic future, and we may actually see a huge resurgence in positivity economically as well. So that's what I'd like to hope for and look forward to.
So you were talking about change in consumer behavior. More and more people will move to digital. So I've got a couple of questions where people want to know how will this eventually mean golden period for e-commerce companies?
I think definitely yes. Once you've got into the habit, it's very hard to undo. So long as it's as convenient or more convenient, as cheap or cheaper, and as delightful or more delightful, an event like this is going to give people an opportunity to switch their habit. It's like I have this model where think of a wristwatch. Once upon a time, the wristwatch's purpose was to tell time. It was a function. Today, that purpose is completely lost, yet we all own wristwatches because it's an ornament now. And I think that is what happens. So we will move all our functional behavior online, and we may still go shopping physically, but that shopping will be for entertainment. It will be to give ourselves a good time. It will be literally for that outing, right? And so we will move more and more of the functional activities online, and the offline will be literally for relaxation, entertainment, taking the family out, things like that. And so we may do the window shopping and the what they call showrooming now much more. And what will happen to the stores then, I don't know. That's a tough question, and they'll have to answer that between themselves and the real estate, commercial real estate companies. They'll have to figure it out. But that's what I suspect will surely happen. So e-commerce, yes, it's a big uptick for them for sure.
So Lokesh wants to know how secure is mobile banking in India as we listen regularly about banking frauds.
Okay. 99% of frauds happen because you have been made a fool of and you reveal something to the fraudster which you shouldn't have, what we call social engineering. That you are conned into clicking a link you shouldn't, or you are conned into literally telling someone your OTP, your CVV, your card number, your bank account number, things like that. 99% of frauds happen because of that. The tools themselves are incredibly secure. So if Nazia, I tell you my password and you enter my password into my app and you take away all my money, who's to blame? It's not the app, it's me. I've been stupid about this. So frankly, I think all banking apps by and large are incredibly well made and well designed for security. It is human behavior which has to change, and that is of course the hardest thing to do because we are by and large surprisingly trusting and gullible, and that is the core of the problem. Even the bank moratorium thing that you referred to earlier, which the government offered, there are scamsters who have used even that. They are calling people up and saying, we are calling from the bank to give you your moratorium. You will get an OTP, please give it to us. That OTP is giving them access to the same bank accounts or credit cards or whatever, and they're cleaning out your accounts. So
Okay.
scammers are always going to be ahead of the game, and that's
Have you
unfortunate.
reported many such cases or just a few?
Just a few, honestly, but that few to become many doesn't take very long, because again,
And there's no awareness. I mean, I'm hearing it for the first time, that the entire thing has just happened.
so scamsters are so creative that every single day they're looking for cleverer ways to do this, and human beings are, because they're so trusting, every single day, more and more human beings are falling for it. So that's the real risk. It's human risk. It's not the technology.
Richa wants to know, with digital banking becomes the new normal for almost all of us. Do you think there is a very thin line now between banks and fintech companies? How are banks planning to maintain their positioning in people's mind?
Yes, you're right, Richa. That risk is certainly alive. Uh, and I don't know necessarily if maintaining a difference compared to fintech companies is the real challenge. I think we will have to embrace, just like, let me find an example. Let's say, just like a brand like Raymond's cannot think of Myntra or Jabong as a digital uh, apparel tech company. They have to think of them as competitor brands, right? So we also think of the fintech companies as competitor brands. Uh, what we know so far, based on our study and understanding, is that consumers tend to trust their large amounts of money with institutions that they see as trustworthy, which have the benefit of age behind them. They have the benefit of solid balance sheets, great reportage about the quality of management and stability, and so on and so forth. And it's not that fintechs don't have it today, but 20 years from now, they will have it, of course. So Kotak is now a 35-year-old brand. So when a fintech is 35 years old, it should logically be as trustworthy as a Kotak. How many fintechs will last that long is the only real question. But some will, for sure. Just like there was an NBFC meltdown in the 90s, late 90s, and Kotak was one of less than 10 entities that survived that. There will be less than 3 or 4 fintechs which will survive 20 years down the line, but they will be as serious a financial brand as Kotak is. So we will treat them with the same respect that we will treat our peers in proper banking today.
I want to take up, we're very short on time, but I really want to take this last question from Saloni Arora. She wants to know how rural consumers will change in the current scenario. What will be the new normal for rural marketing, according to you?
So the good news is, and this again we've seen time after time, that the more starved a constituency is of great products and services, the faster they are to adopt newer ways of doing it. So India has leapfrogged many things digitally. For example, even compared to America, our banking technology is far superior to anything in America even today, and we know this. In some places, even about hospitals, people are saying the same things, that we are ahead of the curve. Rural India, because they don't have the benefit of large numbers of branches and ATMs, they actually are well poised to take the digital leap even ahead of people in the cities, because unko to milne se raha na. They took to Flipkart and Amazon. The smaller towns and cities, if not rural at least smaller towns and cities took to Flipkart and Amazon much faster than the big cities did, because you and I can walk down to the mall and we like it. Those guys don't have a mall to walk down to. So if they want the great brands that we have access to, they have to buy it online. I think the same will happen to rural. Yeah.
Before we close, I have a question for you. How has this crisis evolved you as a person? As in, these are very unusual times. I doubt you've been locked in your house for this long ever before. How has this changed you as a professional as well as a person?
Okay. As a professional, I think it has made me much more empathetic of my colleagues and respectful of them. Just yesterday, one of my colleagues texted me and said that people are scared of me. I was trying to I hosted one Zoom call with all my colleagues in marketing, which is about 100 colleagues across the country. And I found that people weren't discussing their lives, they were only discussing work. So offline, I asked one or two colleagues, what's the deal? Why aren't we able to let our hair down? And they told me that they're scared of me. I was a little surprised by that, but also gave me pause to think about what about my behaviors is scaring them, what I can change about that. On the personal side, I have reduced my consumption of carbs dramatically. So every lunch, there is lunch and dinner, there is some alternative to wheat or rice that I'm trying to consume as my contribution to my health. And I've never been in the kitchen all my life. I have now started making breakfast for the full family. So
Great.
that's a big step for me. I don't think it'll move to lunch or dinner, frankly, because breakfast is only a smoothie. So I put a bunch of fruits in a mixie and get it out and give it to them. But it's something.
Actually, it has really changed many of us in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you're taking care of your health, because that's also a very important aspect which many of us are trying, but we're not as successful as you are. So I still have many questions to go. Maybe we'll have to request Priyanka to arrange another session with you someday, because we'll not be able to take all these questions. We are just left with 2 minutes. So before I close this, I want to tell all of you to join us on 23rd April, Thursday, 3:30 p.m. to 4:15 p.m. on Facebook Live with our next session of Brand Talk. We'll have it with Mr. Tarun Arora, CEO, Zydus Wellness. Mr. Martian, you also please take out some time and join us there.
Your thing, Nazia. Thank you very much.
Anything that you would like to, any piece of advice that you would want to give to all our viewers as well as your colleagues and juniors before we wind up?
So I don't think I'm tall on advice, frankly. I am always hungry for ideas. So if anybody has ideas on how people like us, which is financial services providers, can deploy their resources which are to spare. In our case, it's mostly people, because we have very little else apart from people. We don't have hotel rooms to give away. We don't have factories where we make something that we can do something else with, unfortunately. We have people. And I have to just say that some of my people have been ahead of the curve. So in Indore, for example, some of my colleagues have reached out to their customers who are NRI customers and said, if you have aging parents in the city who you're concerned about, then please tell us and we will take medicines and food and so on. So ideas like that, or even different ideas. If you guys have ideas, please reach out to me directly, or if Nazia can enable that in some way, because we're keen to be more and more contributors to this cause and this crisis than benefit us from it. And that's the only advice I'd give all of you as well. See how you can help. Look for ways you can help while staying safe, of course.
It is actually the time to be human first and help as many people as we can, while we stay safe in our own home, or we take precautions when we step out. Thank you so much, Mr. Martian, for joining us, and thank you to all the people who were sending me questions. And I'm sorry for the questions that we couldn't take up. We'll definitely try and get Mr. Martian again sometime soon and finish most of the questions. Thank you again.
Leave these questions somewhere so we can answer them offline.
I'll try if that is possible. I'll check with the technical team. Thank you so much. I think we have finished it exactly on time. Thanks, Mr. Martian. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thanks. How do we log out? How do we leave meeting? Okay, sir. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.